What is the creepiest glitch in the Matrix you've experienced? Me and my friend were at a Chinese restaurant, and we ordered a General Tso chicken dinner and a shrimp lo mein dish. When we sat down, we took out both boxes and set them on the table about 2 feet apart. My friend opens the first box and we see a shrimp lo mein dish. It has all the things in there: noodles, shrimp, fried rice. He closes the box and opens the other box. Inside that box is another shrimp lo mein dish. Shrimp, noodles, fried rice. Oh, I think they must have mixed the order. I was just about to say this when my friend says out loud, "Looks like they made a mistake and gave us 2." As he opens up the first box again. Inside of it is a General Tso chicken dinner order. General Tso chicken, white rice, and an egg roll. He froze and looked at me, I looked back at him, and we sat in silence. It took us 5 or so minutes to collect ourselves. I have no idea what the fuck happened. Not creepy, but so vivid and distinct that I still think about it, years later. I had a, subjectively, long, involved dream where I was a vendor in a fish market. I remember getting up early, dressing, doing a whole morning routine, going to get tea, heading out to the docks, buying fish, loading them in a cart and going to get ice, then haggling for ice, buying some less fresh fish while I was at it, then going to a market to my stall, setting up and selling fish all day. It was so real. I talked to friends, smoked nasty cigarettes, haggled customers, ate lunch, had tea, and just lived through the day. At the end of the day, I cleaned up, counted my cash, paid the stall rent, went home, cooked some of the fish I hadn't sold, sling with some veggies and rice that I traded for. I drank more tea, relaxed for a while, then drew a hot bath, soaked and smoked some more cigs, then went to bed. The next morning, I woke up refreshed, ready to go down to the docks to buy fresh catch. Except I was in my house, next to my wife, truck parked outside, and it was Saturday, no work. My wife and I were getting geared up to go skiing in Oregon and the car was already packed. Weird thing was, in the dream, I was single. And a smoker, I'm not. And the whole long dream had been in fluent Chinese. The effortless kind of fluency that only comes from a lifetime of speaking it. Oh, and I had been Chinese. I'm a big, hairy white dude, somewhat fluent in Spanish, and I know a little bit of Russian, but I've never. It was just weird. I've never worked in a fish market. I wonder who I was. I wonder what that was. Meanwhile in China, a Chinese fish vendor woke up after having a dream about him being a big, hairy white dude with a wife and a truck. I thought the same thing. The Chinese guy then got to experience a day of skiing as the white guy. And now the Chinese guy sits around telling his kids about his wild dream, they all think he's nuts. Several years ago I woke up in bed next to my, now ex-girlfriend, and we had a conversation in fluent French. I got up and got in the shower, and as the water started running I realized, neither of us spoke French. When I got out I asked her about it. She remembered it happening but was as confused as I was. I can't even remember what we talked about because I don't fucking speak French. Brains are weird. I've experienced deja vu a couple of times when I was younger, and while that is certainly freaky, nothing beats its opposite, jamais vu, which I experienced twice during a period of work-related stress a few years ago. On both occasions I was driving in my car, in perfectly familiar surroundings near my home, when suddenly I had no idea where I was or where I was going. It was like being instantly teleported to a foreign country. It only lasted seconds, but very creepy nonetheless. Until it happened to me, I had no idea that this even existed. Edit, for those of you concerned about my health, yes, I did see a doctor, and so should you if something like this happens to you more than once or lasts longer than a few seconds. My episodes were stress-induced, but more serious conditions can also cause this symptom. Edit 2, if you're on drugs, well there's your problem. My dad has epilepsy and says that he'll experience this when he doesn't take his meds. Sort of like a fugue state. He went to Aspen on a business trip to design a ski lodge and he forgot his meds at home. He was supposed to do a big presentation but he never showed up. His co-workers looked for him for hours until they finally found him walking down the highway in the snow, 8 miles from their hotel. Apparently he had completely forgot who he was, where he was, and why he was there. He figured if he just started walking he could piece things together and figure things out. He snapped out of it when he saw the familiar faces of his co-workers. Oh boy, you guys would love where I work. Weird things happen here all the time, but I'll just talk about one of the creepiest moments I've experienced here. I work as a security/nighttime attendant at an apartment building. It's 24 stories and one of the oldest buildings in the city. One night I'm sitting here when the phone rings at about 3 a.m., and I answer, "Hello, this is Draven at the front desk, how can I help you?" The voice on the other end sounded female, but was totally garbled, and the only bit I could make out was, 23rd floor. I tried to tell the person I couldn't understand them, and asked what apartment they were in, but again garbled response and, 23rd floor. After the third time of trying to understand them and the same response, I said since I couldn't understand them I'd come up and to meet me in the hallway. So I go to the main elevators, and both are up on the, surprise, 23rd floor. Luckily, we have an older service elevator and it's only on the 7th floor, so I call it down. I get it and hit the button for the 23rd floor, but it won't move and the inner door won't close, so I go to unlock the reset panel and boom, we start going up, door still open. I'm freaking out, and the elevator is shaking because it goes pretty fast and is old. As I'm going up, I just stay towards the back and finally I reach floor 23. I step out, door closes just fine, and I look around the hallway. There's nobody around. I walk along slowly trying to listen for anyone awake who might have called, but there's nothing. So now I head the opposite direction and go towards where the regular elevators are, and when I get to them they are just sitting there with their doors open. I was pretty freaked out, but I knew it could just be the elevators on the fritz, so I get in and figure I'll just reset them when I get to floor 1 when I hear the sound of the back stairwell closing. So I quickly get out and go to the stairwell, and lo and behold, no one's there, but the maintenance door to the machine room is ajar, and at that time I'm the only one in the building with a key. At the top of the building is a large machine room housing all the really loud machinery that does stuff in the building and allows access to the roof. I don't like going into it because it's creepy as fuck and no one ever goes there, so at this point I'm seriously freaked out, but I muster up and head in. I shout, "Hello," and there's no response. The lights in this room flicker because they're shitty fluorescent, so I can't see well either, but at the end of the room I can make out the roof access door, and sure as shit, it's slightly open. So I slowly continue forward, checking the space in between each machine as I walk by, and there's no one there, so I open the roof access door. I can't see anyone ahead of me on the roof, but there is a slight wraparound, and if there was a jumper or something I needed to be sure, so I step out and leave the door ajar like it was. Almost immediately, the door is pulled shut. Now I might have written it off as wind or something, but this door is hard to shut and hard to open. Really hard. I immediately grab the handle and yank it open, slam it behind me and run straight for the maintenance door. It automatically locks when it's closed, so I slam it shut too and go back to the 23rd floor hallway, get into an elevator, doors still open, and go all the way down to the first floor. I go back to the main lobby, and as soon as I sit down, the phone rings. I pick it up, don't say a word, and sure as hell garbled voice again, only audibly saying, 23rd floor. I hung up the phone, turned the ringer off, and spent the rest of the evening just staring at the parking garage security monitor. There's been a bunch of creepy things happen at this building. It's basically like the Overlook Hotel at night. I walked past a dark room here on the first floor once and swore I saw myself standing inside it. The next night as I'm inside said room cleaning, the lights flip off and I turn around to see a quick flash of myself walking past. TLDR, creepy ghost or some shit played games with me at work by trying to lure me onto the roof of the building. I knew my uncle had died. My mom had called me and told me the news. It was very sad. She told me in the middle of work and I told one of my coworkers. He expressed his condolences on my loss. A couple weeks later, my sister mentioned my aunt and uncle doing something. I said, "But, he's dead." And my sister said no, he wasn't. I called my mom. No, he wasn't dead. To this day I'm still not sure how much of it my brain imagined and how much was real. Did I really talk to my coworker? Was I even on the phone with my mom at all that day? It still freaks me out knowing that my mind could fabricate so complete and real a memory like that. This happened to my dad, so it's not exactly a personal story. Anyway, my dad was driving down a long lonely highway in Ohio doing about 90 in his Z28 with a radar detector. Rolling hills and whatnot meant that cops could hide at the bottom before you could see them and slow down. So, all of a sudden, his radar detector starts blaring and he slams on the brakes. Right over the hill, there's a squad car running radar. He's super relieved, but when he looks at the detector, it's not even on the windshield. It was unplugged and in the glove compartment. What the fuck? TLDR, ghost radar sector kept my dad from getting a ticket. I had just turned 22 and my parents had sold their house and purchased a place out in the country. On the property there was a big shed not far from the house that I decided to turn into my place. Now I felt kind of uncomfortable in the shed sometimes, but my dog kept me company, so it wasn't so bad. Anyway, I had been in there maybe 2 weeks and one night I'm on the computer, my dog asleep at my feet and I need to pee, so I get up and go outside to piss. It's a beautiful clear night and the stars were incredible. Next thing I hear the shed door slam behind me. I turn immediately and try to open it but it won't budge. Now from inside the shed I can hear my dog start to growl, quietly at first then louder, now he's barking and I'm panicking trying to get the door open. I must mention that I'm 6'5" and well built, play sports etc. but even ramming my full weight into the door won't open it and I'm really panicking now as my dog's barks turned into whines, then whimpering, then silence and with all my might I slam into the door and it flies open. The light is off inside now and it's pitch black, it won't turn back on and I'm in complete darkness. Can't see my dog anywhere and I stumble around trying to find a torch, finally I find it and pick it up and turn on my torch and I wasn't prepared for what I'd see next. My dog had literally squashed itself into the furthest, darkest corner of the room, eyes closed and is shaking violently. I immediately moved towards him and as soon as I got within reach of him, he leapt at me into my arms and wouldn't move. I picked him up and I swear I've never ran so fast in my goddamn life. I never stepped foot in that shed ever again and my dog wouldn't even go near that part of the property. This isn't a glitch in the Matrix, this is a straight up demonic story. Holy shit. Have a few, but this one stands out. I was catching a Skitran in one particular city about 15 minutes from where I get off. While I wait there is a woman with glazed eyes asking people for money. She came up to me, stopped briefly, and asked, "Excuse me, could you spare some money? My brother is in the hospital and I'd like some money to buy him some flowers." That's rich I thought. Drug addicts are getting more and more obvious with their lines. "Here's $5. Gave it to her without even looking her in the face, convinced of her intentions. Anyways, my train pulls up and I get on. I look through the glass at her walking around asking others for money as the train pulls away. The train arrives at the station 15 minutes later, and I walk down and out to the bus stop. There is only one bus the direction I'm going, and just my luck. It is there waiting when I get off the train. So on the bus I hop and wait for the bus driver to finish reading his paper before the doors close and we embark down the highway. About 5 to 10 minutes traveling, the driver pulls over for a routine stop. The doors open, and to my complete astonishment the woman from the Skitran walks into the bus. A dozen roses in hand. She looks me right in the eyes as she walks past to take her seat. How in the blue hell did she get there? I took the train before her. I watched her at the train stop from inside as we pulled away. I went over a river. I caught the first and only bus going this particular direction. And not only did she beat me there, she had time to go to a store and buy a dozen roses. To this day I have no idea how this happened. A little backstory, I was a total idealist back in high school, so when choosing a college I chose to go somewhere that none of my friends were attending so that I could strike out on my own in a finding myself sort of way. Well, I ended up making a few really close friends my first semester. I mean, these guys became like family to me in a matter of months. One day during winter break one of those guys, my buddy Kimbo, had gone back home to visit friends and family, and on his return trip to our college he hit a bad patch of ice and got into a car accident and was killed. It hurt like a son of a bitch for a long time and I still think about him all the time, but anyways, a few weeks after Kimbo's accident me and the rest of the guys were getting back from a party off campus, and as we were standing outside our dorm building smoking a cig I felt my phone vibrating, and when I pulled it out I saw that I was getting a call from Kimbo's phone. Dumbfounded, I showed my friends the phone quickly and then answered. When I picked up it just went directly to his voicemail, which played the same message it always had. It never happened again and we never really talked about it, but for me it was one of those "someone's looking after me" moments. I hadn't been doing very well after his death, but seeing his name show up on my cell phone screen one final time made me feel a whole lot better for a time and really helped me get out of the slump I was in. I have no idea how his phone could have possibly called me, and I doubt I ever will, but this was one glitch in the Matrix that I'll forever be thankful for. Rest in peace, Kim. But feel free to call again. That was actually rather beautiful. Sorry for your loss, but glad you found some closure. Actually, I've had one of those "someone's looking after me" moments. My great-grandmother had died when I was about 13, but I always rather liked her of all my great-grandparents. When I met my husband, I was 19, and when we were getting serious a couple years later, I remember having a dream. I was sitting in her house on her couch. She had a bunch of little birds and I could hear them. The house smelled of her cooking, and I was telling her about this great guy I'd met and how he was British and I'd have to leave home to be with him. I'm American, but I thought he was worth it. She gave me some grandmotherly advice, follow your heart, and said he sounded wonderful, and then I left. It was very realistic, but I'm not one to believe in such things at all. But to this day, I always feel strongly like my grandmother had given me her blessing even though I was just a kid when she passed. When I was like 10 or 11 I was going to the beach with my aunt and her friends. There were 2 cars of us. To get there we had to go through a very large industrial area. We didn't know the direction, so our car was following the other. Suddenly, they did an unexpected turn and so our driver had to take a sharp bend. In that moment we heard a very clear, loud voice inside the car saying laughing, "Sharp bend, HM." The driver immediately hit the brakes. We looked at each other, puzzled. We all recognized it as a voice not belonging to any of us. In the very same time, we noticed that the other car has stopped as well. The other driver got out of the car with a scared face and shouted to us, Did you hear that as well?" They heard the very same thing inside their car. The area around was full deserted. One morning when I was 15 my dad looked tired and stressed. I asked him what was up. He said he had an awfully realistic dream of me killing myself. Said in the dream he came into my room to find me hanging from my neck in the closet. It bothered him so bad that he actually came and checked on me while I was asleep. Not too big of a deal but not cool as I thought. 20 minutes later my sis comes into the room, fresh from waking up. She looks at me and first thing she said was, "Damn Vraze, I had a weird dream. I came in your room and you had shot yourself in the head. It was messed up." I told her that Dad had a dream about me killing myself last night too, and had him explain IR to her. We just kinda sat there in an unnerving silence. I've never been suicidal but that freaked the whole fam damnly out. About a year ago I had a terrible nightmare. It started off me waking up in bed during a thunderstorm. As the room illuminated again and again from the flashes of lightning outside I realized that the bed I was laying in wasn't mine. The head of the bed was against the wall the door was located on, and from my perspective I couldn't tell if it was open or closed. That is until I saw the face. At first, just the nose and jaw broke past the door frame, but then an entire face slowly passed through the doorway. I tried to yell, "Who the fuck are you, where the fuck am I?" but it felt like I had lost my voice. No matter how hard I tried to scream, nothing came out and this person continued to enter the room, looking dead ahead, away from me. Then, just as the person was completely into the room, their head snapped towards me, and it locked eyes with mine. I tried to get out of the bed, but felt completely paralyzed. The person started making their way to me, but with every step their body contorted in ways that would break a normal person's bones. Their neck snapped so the back of their head touched their back, their jaw lay flat on their chest, their arms had broken at the shoulders and migrated to their back like wings. Just terrifying shit. And just before they reached me, I woke up. The next day I told my mom about it, and went into great deal about the room. Turns out it was almost an exact copy of my room when I was a baby. We moved out of that house when I was super young, like I have no idea what the insides to any room look like. Just kinda weird I guess. Who needs sleep anyways? As I type this I am already feeling déjà vu. I've always wanted to share this part of my life with someone but have never been able to. So, I'll just tell a bunch of people on the internet. One day I was walking to work and all of a sudden had an urge to walk a different path than usual. I work downtown in a big city. It was a strange spur of the moment urge to walk a different way that changed my life forever. I turned into an alley I had never seen before. As I remember it, I made it about 15 feet or so when an actual glitch happened. Everything in my mind scrambled. I felt like I didn't have a body anymore, just that I was a semi-conscious entity floating through some weird dimension. All of a sudden in the array of different colors and shapes a vision came to me. It was a bunch of strange-looking people that in my mind resembled businessmen in suits. They looked startled and panicked that I could see them. One of the people made a quick movement and everything turned to black. When I regained normality, I was on a completely different street. It was the same street that I always used to walk to work. I felt sick and severely disturbed/depressed. I've never done any hard drugs, never experienced any hallucinations, never have had anything like this happen to me. The weird thing is, when the glitch was correcting itself and I could see those people watching me like a caged animal, I had the feeling that I knew I was being controlled. It still bothers me very much to this day. TLDR had a moment of spontaneity, caused a real-life glitch, life has seemed different ever since. I don't know if this is a source of consolation or not, but a long time ago I had a conversation with an old workmate who described much the same thing. The detail is hazy, but he said one day he in his house when he felt a sudden need to go outside and stand on his lawn, he claimed it was the strongest clearest feeling ever, and on doing so he experienced a sort of wobble. He just said everything was screwed up for a moment, and he experienced a feeling of detachment/outsideness when it passed he tuned to go back inside. Now, while talking to me he got quite upset at this point, and asked me not to think him crazy, but he said the next thing he saw was his car parked in the street and it was the same model/registration but a different color. He was so thrown at this, and then more so because then his wife came out to ask what he was doing, and he said he realized she was in all appearance his wife, but somehow not his wife. He said from that point on she liked food she had claimed to hate before, and sometimes brought up memories he said had zero relation to things they had done in the past. He said things like his route to work was still the same but somehow different. He said there were buildings on the way that either he had missed in the 6 years he'd driven past them 5 days a week or had just appeared overnight. He even said some people he remembered from other departments in work had just vanished, and asking about them brought total incomprehension from other people. He was a totally regular healthy guy, but he said he measured his life in relation to that afternoon. There were things that happened before the change, and everything afterwards. He went to say he was now living his life with a feeling that about 15% of it had spontaneously changed that afternoon. We moved on and drifted apart since then, different jobs, but I've never really felt so sure about the permanence of reality ever since. It sounds a little bit like Capgras delusion to me. It doesn't sound a little like Capgras, it sounds exactly like Capgras, presented following a seizure. Many Capgras patients have times of clarity when they can identify/feel comfortable with the people they know, like 30/70%, etc. The OP story kind of sounds seizure-induced too. During a spinal tap procedure I was put under. While under the anesthetics I had what I can only explain as an out-of-body experience, seeing as how my viewpoint was from above my body looking down on the procedure. I watched the whole thing and saw that the doctor knocked my Game Boy off the tabletop while walking by, batteries ejecting from the fall. One fell in sight and he picked it up, but the other was next to the front left wheel under the bed out of his view. But not mine. I woke up groggy and told him where my other battery was, and he was shocked when he found it there. To this day it still weirds me out. I had a similar experience when I was in the ER as a child. I was very, very sick when I was younger with severe asthma. I had a really bad asthma attack and I remember being wheeled in the room. Next I just saw black. When I woke up, I felt like I was hovering above my body. The doctor and nurse were frantically working on me. They gave me a dose of adrenaline and it went black again. Next thing I remember is gasping for air on the table. When I was a teenager I had 2 really intense dreams one night. The first one was about an online friend of mine calling me to say she'd broken up with her boyfriend, and I sang a few lines of Seal's "Don't Cry" to her over the phone. The second dream was finding a real-life friend dead body floating in her bathtub. I didn't think anything of it up until I logged online that evening and the online friend came online to tell me her boyfriend broke up with her. I immediately asked if I could call her, and she said no. I remember thinking that it meant something, like I could change it. Not long after, my phone rang, and it was real-life friend from the dream calling me. I was completely freaked at this point, but talked to her normally. She was just talking about school and shit, up until I realized I heard a splash in the background. I asked her, "Are you in the tub?" And when she said yes I felt like my heart had stopped. I asked her, "What did you do?" She didn't answer me right away, and then after a very long pause she told me she'd taken an entire bottle of pills and chased it with mushrooms and vodka. She'd gotten scared waiting for it to hit her, so she called me so she'd hear someone's voice. I hung up and called 911. By the time they got there she was unconscious, but alive. Today she's a mom to a beautiful little girl, and she's okay. See, in situations like these I wonder if it's your subconscious putting pieces of clues together and trying very hard to warn you because you know with some certainty that something will happen. There was this one time when our family ran over a rock. I was in the passenger seat and saw it as it went under us. Our car felt different as it moved, but my dad didn't feel it. For days I wondered if I was just imagining it. Sometime in the future I had a dream where the axle of the car disengaged from the steering wheel. A day or two later, I was waiting to get picked up, got a call that something was wrong with the car. Turns out, my dad was driving when there was a loud clunk and he realized he could no longer steer in any direction. It was weird, but I think my head figured it out and was trying to warn me. Yeah, I believe there is a phenomenon where subtle things are perceived by the brain and analyzed. Then some part of your brain pieces it together and presents the analysis/conclusion as a dream. I've read that there is this tiny area of the brain that is really wise and level-headed, but unfortunately it has a very soft voice. Usually this voice is drowned out by louder, more emotional parts of the brain. Dreams where problems have been solved have been recorded throughout history. The first time I've heard of this was when I was a kid and I saw something about the man who invented the sewing machine. He dreamt he had been captured by cannibals and was being threatened with spears with holes in the tip. The next day he realized he could solve this problem by making sewing machine needles with holes in the tip. About a year ago, my girlfriend and I went to eat dinner at Chipotle's. It's in a smallish shopping area with a burger joint and Payway neighboring the Chipotle, one of those kind of upper-classy type shopping areas. We pulled into the parking lot in front of the establishments at around 5 p.m. on a Friday evening to find an empty parking lot. There were no tables outside, there were no cars in the parking spots, not a person in sight, and even the lights inside the buildings were off. Completely confused, I took the car in a sort of loop around the building in order to leave. The only thing of interest was a single fire truck parked alongside the building, headlights on, but no emergency lights, and no one in the truck. It struck us a little odd, maybe a fire in the building? As we pull around the back side of the building, and then finish looping around, we drive past the front facade of the building. Except this time every parking spot is full, tables are outside with patrons at them, food half eaten. There's people walking around, and the lights inside the buildings are all on. But the fire truck was gone. Mind you, it took less than 30 seconds to make a circle around the building. Easily one of the strangest things I've ever experienced. More adjustment bureau than Matrix glitchy. Was monkeying on the handrails of a balcony on the 4th floor of my building and fell off, as 2 of my buddies watched in horror. I remember seeing the concrete floor approaching as I fell head first and thinking, oh fuck, I'm going to break my wrist. Why my wrist? Dunno. Next recollection is seeing my buddies yelling, from up there, are you okay? Are you okay? I look up, I say, what happened? They did not see me actually hit the floor, they just ran outside and saw me already standing looking up. Not a scratch, not a bruise, nothing hurted. I don't remember hitting the floor, standing up, nothing. No memories exist for those 1 or 2 seconds. None of us 3 ever understood what happened. But we all saw it and agree on what happened. I knew someone that fell asleep drunk on a 3-story flat roof, which they rolled off of during the night. The doctors said the main reason he didn't break anything was that his body was in such a state of relaxation from the booze-induced coma he was in, that he pretty much just bounced at the concrete. There was a Russian guy named Alexei Roskov who drank 3 bottles of vodka and then jumped out of the window from his apartment, on the 5th floor. Fortunately for him, the booze relaxed his limbs and kept him from getting all tense, so he fell like a slinky. Didn't break a single bone and, in fact, went back to his apartment, found his wife calling an ambulance and jumped a second time to prove he was just fine. Motherfucker survived again.
Nice, you've made it till the end. Subscribe to escape the Matrix.